I've been told by contemporary Christians that the Eastern Orthodox view isn't so restrictive. Guys, the fact that the contemporary Eastern Orthodox position is different is my whole point. That's the argument.
Gavin Ortlund recently made a response video to Jonathan Pageau in regards to this idea of, is there salvation outside the Orthodox Church? Now, part of why Gavin made the video was because Jonathan Pageau basically made a video where you can see that Jonathan Pageau is probably already visibly frustrated with this talking point because it's been explained to so many Protestants, especially Protestant apologists, so many times. And what ends up happening is instead of the Protestant apologists receiving and understanding that, okay, this is the Orthodox position, what do? They double down. And from Jonathan Pageau's perspective, there's this idea where it's like, there's a sense of like rigorous view that people like Gavin are having because they find a few texts, maybe in the Middle Ages, as they would put it. Now, I know, to be fair to Gavin, he is free to like make a response video to defend himself. I think that's fair game, right? He feels like Jonathan probably maligned his character, whatever the case may be. That's what allegedly, that's what Pageau, not Pageau, but Gavin is saying. And I think, to be fair to him, he's in his full right to make a response video to defend himself. Fair game. But the reality is what Jonathan Pageau, if I could just focus on not the back and forth of that, but on the substance of the argument, is what Jonathan Pageau is saying correct? And the answer is yes. This is absolutely correct. And so, to some degree, I understand like Jonathan Pageau's frustration here, because it's like, how many other people have to tell you this? And I know Gavin would say something to the effect of like, oh, well, this is not something that is universal amongst Orthodox. I've heard some modern day people tell me that I am in fact going to hell. And the reality is, yeah, when Jonathan Pageau was saying like everybody tells you this, I don't think he meant like literally everybody. Yes, I'm sure if I talk to some Calvinists, I'll find two here or there that might, I don't know, deny limited atonement, but that doesn't mean that's the Reformed view as a whole, right? And so I just feel like, come on, let's be, if we talk about being charitable, like, let's be serious. We know what Jonathan Pageau was saying here. The reality is the bulk of the people that you talk to about Orthodoxy, they're going to essentially say, like, and I'm talking about like priests and scholars and all that, they're going to tell you that, no, you're not in fact going to, it's not in fact guarantee that you're going somewhere we don't want you to go, right? The reality is we don't know, and we don't judge those outside the church. And you're friends with Father Josiah Trenum. I'm sure you could connect with Father Stephen Young and many other priests that will tell you this thing. Now, Gavin's argument would be, well, there has been a change in the Middle Ages. You guys were saying one thing, and now you're saying another thing. And that would be his critique. Now, I'm going to provide receipts to show why that's not the case, and hopefully we could put a bed to this, put this to rest, and that you can walk back your statements, right? Because in the Middle Ages, it's not exclusive like you make it out to be, and maybe you're just not aware of that.
One of my arguments has been the language in phase 2 couldn't be stronger. There's no way to ratchet it up that I can think of other than more exclamation points. Phase 3 is today, in the modern era, where you find a lot of more of these sentiments like, we know where the church is, we don't know where it isn't. This is where we know salvation happens, but we're not necessarily passing judgment on those out there.
But in the Middle Ages, people have said the same thing as well. So now you have a decision to make. Are you going to listen to the Orthodox when they tell you, hey, that's not our view. We're not saying that we're not as rigid, and we have not changed our stance on this, but we've always understood this tension, this idea that, yes, you must be in the ark to be saved. It is real that you must be in the Orthodox Church. But in reality, the other part of that tension is, yes, you must be in the church. However, God in the Holy Spirit works outside the bounds of the church. The Holy Spirit works outside the bounds of the church. He's not restricted to the church, and he may save. The Spirit will save and reach whoever the Spirit wills to reach. So we're gonna look at this. So kudos to my friend Newman here. Newman has he's an Orthodox lawyer, has done some really amazing work, and I'm a big fan of his. Like him a lot. Orthodox lawyer. Also, he has learned under the great Bishop Callistos Ware of blessed memory. So someone who's very has got a master's in theology, very knowledgeable, and is a great Orthodox lawyer as well. So, anyways, here is the receipts, and hopefully Gavin could walk back some of these statements after seeing this. So I'm going to focus primarily on the Middle Ages because, I mean, if we look at the early centuries, he's going to agree that there is some, it wasn't this unanimous, exclusivism. So in the first 8 centuries, great, we got that right. Saint Justin Martyr says that, he's made comments about certain pagans, right? Saint Gregory of Nyanza has made certain comments that there are some who are ours even among those who seem to be outside, right? So we can go on. He doesn't deny this, but let's look at the Middle Ages for a second. So Saint Photius the Great says, someone who has dealt with heresy, if anybody's going to be strict and exclusive, right? This would be someone you would think, right? He says, and I quote, for the merciful judge is entirely for the merciful judge, it is entirely possible that for those not having a gift for offering, their sincere desire replaces it, even if they do not accomplish anything worthy of their intent, right? And this is when one of his homilies on the Annunciation. You got Saint Peter of Damascus. This is in the 12th century, Middle Ages. This is what you want, Middle Ages. And this is included in the Philokalia, by the way. And this is kind of some form of speculation in light of the story of the publican and the Pharisee, that humility alone may be enough for an individual, right? Now it says, and I quote, it is clear that such a one is acceptable to God and is not to be cast aside, and God will not allow him to die in ignorance, but would lead him to the truth and will enlighten him with the light of knowledge, like he did with Cornelius. So this is God at work outside of his bounds. Now you might say, hey, this is someone that later in this lifetime got in his bounds. Sure, fine. Let's go St. Mark of Ephesus, 15th century. And there's more quotes. I mean, I could go St. Nicholas, 14th century, St. Mark of Ephesus. We got another 15th century, 16th century. And we can kind of go on. St. Mark of Ephesus says, I'll read this quickly, which is considered a pillar of orthodoxy, accepted the possibility that even the pagan emperor Trojan could be saved through the prayers of St. Gregory. So this is St. Mark of Ephesus here saying that through the prayers of St. Gregory, that even the pagan emperor can be saved, right? This is the kind of nuance that gets disregarded. And we can read some more. St. Maximus distinguished between ignorance and heresy. He says, if he acts thus through ignorance, he is recognized as one who has strayed, not as a heretic. This idea of, he expressed this kind of hope that there will yet be a time when the Lord will enlighten you to understand this. And in the modern era, the pre-modern era, 17th to 19th century, since he kind of left room between the 9th and 19th century, here's some other people. Saint Seraphim of Sarov says this in the 19th century. Now, he's famously refused to judge anyone's salvation. This is what he has said as it pertained to the heterodox when he was questioned about what we should do, for the heterodox. Now, this question says, when asked about the heterodox, he directed the questionnaire to prayers rather than condemnation. He also taught that the Holy Spirit was active outside the canonical boundaries of the church. So the Holy Spirit is active outside the canonical boundaries of the church. So like, and then we could talk about liturgical witness, right? You know, you have the good thief who we recognize on Holy Friday, and we invoke him before every Holy Communion, right? You know, do you have time? Do you know if he had confession and all the sacraments and all this? You don't know this, right? And Saint Verus, there's a saint in our church, Saint Verus, who we intercede, who intercedes for those that are that died outside the church, right? And there has been in the 17th century, there has been in the 17th century like a church in commemoration of him. So that means people were praying for the lost in the Middle Ages, 17th century, right? Saint, you know, and I'm not saying Saint Verus is from the 17th century. I'm saying that this is the Middle Ages when, you know, people were praying in that time, right? In that church, and obviously before that. So this is a great misrepresentation. Why can't we understand the tension? And this is what Jonathan Pageau is pointing at, which it seems that Gavin has not understand. So now we've provided some receipts, right? So now at this point, we can't have this mindset of, oh, you know, it was only just in the modern era that people are saying this, or early in the earlier era, and if earlier era, the patristic witness. No, you can't say that anymore. And even if you could, it would still prove that your methodology or approach is different. So, yes, we invite everybody to come to the Ark of Salvation. Yes, it's true that salvation is found in the Orthodox Church. But yes, it is also true that God in his great mercy can save anybody. And the Holy Spirit is at work outside of the bounds of the church, and he draws many people in, and by his grace, he may mystically draw those who walked in accordance to him, that those who are one with him, that in this life maybe were outside the physical bounds, but he mystically grafts in. Do we know that? We don't. We don't know who may fall under this form of ignorance, or who may receive this kind of mercy. But we do call everybody to the Orthodox Church, because that is the hospital. That is the Ark of Salvation. So hopefully Gavin could walk back some of these statements. And yeah, I hope this will hopefully remove some of the caricatures from some of our Protestant friends.
What's funny is that this is now happening in a strange context, because now you have a Protestant who's telling Orthodox what they believe. And he's saying, this is what you believe. Look at these texts that I've chosen and that I've strung in a line, and I'm presenting back to you. And I'm saying, look at the text. The texts speak for themselves. It's pretty clear what you believe. And for us, it's just confusing. It's like it's head scratching. And the other thing we realize is that he's not really talking to us, you know, because all of the Orthodox are just kind of scratching their heads and going, what? That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works. And what we realize is that he's actually talking to Protestants.